30, I'd like to welcome everybody to today's LFRA meeting. Call the meeting to order and ask everybody to please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Christie, would you call the roll, please? Here.
Present.
Yes, ma'am.
Present.
Thank you. Chief Ward, do we have any amendments to the agenda?
Don't believe so.
Ward's presentations?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. That will take us to public comment. If you haven't signed up and would like to speak, we have a sign-up sheet up here at the podium. I'd like to read you a little statement on this first. The board will take comment from the public regarding any matter on today's agenda to ensure sufficient time to address all the agenda items at today's meeting and hear from as many people as practical. Each speaker will have up to 2 minutes in which to share their comments, and the total amount of time allotted for public comment will be 60 minutes. The board will ask first to receive comments from members of the public who reside within the authority's jurisdiction, and then if time remains, for members of the public residing outside the authority's jurisdiction. Please do not interrupt other speakers. Side conversations should be moved outside the meeting room. Thank you. So we'll open it up for public comment. When you come up, please tell us where you live. You don't have to give us your address, but just whether it's in Loveland or in the rural.
My name is Scott Kretschmer. I live in rural. I represent the rural on the advisory commission. I know you guys won't ever answer my questions, but has the rural board ever met with their constituencies? Never had a chance other than communication. And I've often felt that you don't really listen to the constituency because we've had discussions and your response was 80-20 will never change. I don't believe that's listening to the constituencies. I think that's furthering your opinion. The 80-20 split is just totally out of date. It's counter to the fire department because as the city gets broker, the rural district pays less and puts more in the bank. I've got over 11,300 something in the reserve, or 11,300,000 in the reserve. And it doesn't seem like that's necessary. That could be working with the fire department and paying for an engine that we could have put in Station 10 instead of the rapid response vehicle. After reading in the letter that you guys proposed, I have been to many meetings and seen budgets on the screen, and she's been sitting right here willing to answer any questions, and I don't see anything non-transparent about that. Captain Schutz has done his best. It's a secondary job for him. He's a captain with this department, and I kind of feel if you have an issue with it, why don't you finance a statistician for the department? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Amber D. Decker. I'm a city resident. I'm here speaking on behalf of the citizens group that has put together a petition of no confidence in you guys. And to reinstate Chief Sendelbach. We have absolutely no faith in you guys as a board for the safety of our community or the safety of my fire family. So I'm asking that you step down And if you choose not to, there will be more. So would you like this, or would you like me to hand it to somebody else?
You can give it to Christie.
Okay,
Thank you. Do we have anyone else?
We do. Tracy Powell?
yes. Hi, my name is Tracy Powell. I live in the rural district. And I respectfully ask you to reconsider the process of terminating Chief Sendelbach. Please hear me out. As you may or may not realize, but I'm sure you do by now, the fire chief is beloved by our community of Loveland. Not just by the firefighters he's responsible for, but from us, the citizens. I read the article in yesterday's RH regarding the letter compiled by the rural board of the chief's shortcomings. At best, the grievances were borderline murky. It sounded more like personal differences between you, Jeff, and you, Paul, and the chief. Why am I standing here to address you to ask you to, why I'm standing here is to ask you to please pause. The actions of the board are tearing up our community, diminishing our firefighters, and giving us a sense of no confidence in the five of you. We are coming, I honestly don't know how you can recover from this if the chief is terminated. We are coming into a fire season like no other. The lack of moisture and high temperatures already in February are setting us up for high potential fire season in a very short time. I humbly ask you to reinstate the fire chief as soon as possible. I ask you to work with him, try again, work out your differences and your grievances. And if you, Paul and Jeff, really can't handle an outstanding chief under your command, then you leave and give up your position on the board. I ask you to sit down with the chief, possibly a mediator or an outside person to help you find common ground for the betterment of our community. I also want to make one thing perfectly clear. I live in the rural district. My property was just brought into the fire district. The chief never promised us anything. No firehouse, no special treatment. All he gave us was his word. If there was a fire in the rural district, he would be there with his firefighters. That's, for me, that's all I needed to hear. There's not a day that goes by that my husband and I don't realize that we are living in the middle of a forest, and that not a day goes by that we don't think about fire mitigation to preserve our beautiful property. I ask each of you, do you care about my property as much as I do? I think not, or you would not go down this rabbit hole. I ask you once again, stop this madness. Let's move on. Just stop.
Okay, why don't we go ahead with online?
If anyone online would like to make public comment at this time, please use the raise your hand feature and I'll call on you. Zoom user, I am going to give you permission to talk. Please start your public comment now. Zoom user, you have to unmute. Mr. Dan Castaneda, I'm calling on you. Please start your public comment.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am asking that the board not just reconsider reinstatement of our chief, Sendelbach, but I am disturbed and disgusted after reading the report and letter of intent to terminate. I believe that these are very minuscule issues in comparison to what we have seen from other leaders in our community, other officials in our community, and quite frankly, I'm disgusted. And I ask that this board, each one of you on both the rule and the city LFRA, that you resign from your positions. I have no faith and no confidence in your ability to oversee this department, and I have all faith in Chief Sendelbach, and I would ask that they reconsider their intent to terminate. Thank you very much.
If I try this one again.
Yes,
Okay.
sure.
So Zoom user, I'm going to allow you to talk. Please, there you go. Please start your public comment.
Hello, my name is Matthew Salazar. I'm a firefighter with LFRA. And one thing I heard a lot of y'all speaking from the board speaking about being in the military, having prior service, and that's one thing that I do know and understand. And when it comes to leadership, I don't fully know all of what y'all have that y'all are saying y'all are charging him with in order to force him out. I'm just hoping that when you do these things, they're done with, like, it needs to be done with accuracy, not with, oh, it's something that's hearsay or not fully provable. I really feel like y'all are quick to jump to some sort of conclusion, and it's held behind closed doors, so nobody's going to know what you do or what you say or how. And in my opinion, like, that's not how a leader in your position needs to be. You should be out front with as much as possible. Thank you.
Anybody outside the authority area?
I didn't have any signups inside outside,
Okay.
so I'm.
Called on everybody?
That didn't sign up.
Okay, very good. All right, public, thank you for your comments. I'm gonna ask the board if they have any comments they want to make. I'll start down to my left with Director Sampson.
Why don't you circle back, if that's all right?
I'll circle back to you.
I am this time. I'm good. I appreciate the comments.
Yes, thank you. I would like to read a little bit of a,
I apologize. There's one more person with their hand up.
yeah, let them go ahead, sure.
Give me just 1 second to get into the background. User Walsh, I'm going to allow you to talk. Please start your public comment.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Members of the board, my name is Dan Walsh, Local 3566. The letter of intent to terminate is now public. Many of us have read it carefully. What it reveals is not misconduct, not dereliction of duty, and not a threat to public safety. What it reveals is a collection of personal grievances and strained interpretations that have been elevated to the level of just cause. That is not how a high-functioning public safety agency should be governed. The overwhelming majority of LFRA membership has already expressed a loss of confidence in this board's leadership, and the public is beginning to see why. When leadership disagreements and personality conflicts are treated as termination level offenses, the mission suffers. Firefighters notice the community notices, and trustee roads. Now that the letter is public, justification for secrecy is gone. If these allegations are strong enough to end the chief's career, then they're strong enough to withstand public scrutiny. Hold the response in open session. Let the community hear both sides. Let transparency, not executive session, determine the outcome. Public safety depends on trust, and you have the opportunity to begin restoring that trust today.
He's done.
Okay, is there anybody else from outside the district that would like to make public comment? I think that was what happened.
Okay, I'd like to read a statement, if you would bear with me on this. I wrote it down so I wouldn't lose track of what I wanted to say. And this does not address the chief. This addresses some other comments that have come up as far as funding. I think it's important that the public understand this. Recently, there's been spirited discussion about Loveland Fire Rescue Authority's IGA. To fully appreciate why and where we are today, it's important to know the history. For approximately 50 years, the Rural Fire District contracted annually with the city of Loveland for fire and rescue protection. In 2009, a joint committee made up of firefighters and citizens from both the city and the world was formed to explore the best way to provide fire and rescue protection for the entire community. The committee considered forming a fire district. We looked at an authority or just continuing as we were at the time. After an exhaustive 2.5-year study, the committee proposed the authority model to both the city of Loveland and the Loveland Fire Protection District, to which all entities agreed to. The current Loveland Fire Rescue Authority became official in 2012. In order to make this IGA feasible, the Rural Fire District Board agreed to increase its annual contribution from 13% to the current split, or to a budget of 18% at that time. So this was in 2012, we went from 13% to 18%. In 2023, LFRA commissioned a financial analysis of our funding model, which is known as the Raftellus Report. After studying the report and receiving support from both the Loveland City Council, the Loveland Rural Fire Protection District, the authority increased the rural's funding from 18% to 20%. This was a large increase for the rural, but continuing with a partnership with the city was important to the rural. I stress this most recent increase was approximately just 2.5 years ago. The City Council, the Rural Board, and the Fire Authority Board all agreed a 80% funding model was fair to taxpayers. Time has taught us that there is never enough money in public safety. There is always the opportunity to hit another higher level of service with additional funding. The city has had its challenges the last couple of years with the loss of the food sales tax. This has resulted in budget cuts for all departments in the city. Given the ability to contribute more to the fire authority, there is no reason to believe the council wouldn't have done so. Still, good, sound financial decisions were made without sacrificing the safety of the community or firefighters. During the last several challenging years, the Rural Board, in an effort to be a good partner and better fund the fire authority, has contributed beyond their IGA an additional $7.5 million. Needless to say, this isn't the board's personal money. This money belongs to rural taxpayers whom the board has a fiduciary relationship to. The Rural Board believes the rural and the city are one community looking out for the well-being of all while balancing this with rural taxpayers paying their fair share. It's been suggested by some the authority model and current funding split are outdated. Again, please keep in mind the current funding split was just updated in 2023 and approved by City Council and the Rural Board both. How outdated can it be? In theory, a fire district sounds good and has the potential to work. Keep in mind, it doesn't bring in more dollars unless taxpayers increase their taxes. Using round percentages, rural taxpayers are currently paying about 0.11, and city taxpayers are paying approximately 0.09. The rules of tax districts are complicated, but basically everybody in the district has to pay the same mill levy. This means city taxpayers will have to substantially increase their property taxes if we're to create a district. The argument goes the city could lower tax sales or lower sales tax to offset this increase. However, a prudent city councilor will be hesitant to give up known reliable taxes like property taxes in exchange for unreliable sales tax. Districts have worked for many fire departments and one could work here, but remember, the fire department still needs the same amount of money and districts by themselves don't provide anything additional. They're just a different funding model. So we're not saying we're against the district, it's just not as simple as what it sounds. In closing, the most important message is the city council, the authority, and the rural very much care about our firefighters and the community. We have stressed this with authority leadership over the years as we have diligently worked together, exploring how to best serve our community and the brave firefighters within. Do you want me to circle back to you, Director Sampson?
I'll echo a lot of what you said. I think you said it great.
Okay, thank you.
Can I?
Yes, go ahead, Mayor.
I just want to, I'll put this out there for everybody. In the over 50 years I've been in leadership, the hardest thing I've ever had to do was make a decision whether I terminate somebody or not. And I've had folks that have had their teams that have loved them that I've terminated. I've had folks that have had their teams that hated them that I've terminated, and I've kept both. It's not an easy decision for me looking at this. I'll be honest with you, I wish we weren't having to deal with this in the public itself, because I think a personnel decision is a personnel decision. But the way this sits down, the way it's sitting, the way it's lined up in the contract, it's already been let out, is the fact that there are steps to go through. What we've just done is one step. There are other steps to go through. The chief still has an opportunity to speak to this board, let the board know what's going on. We have the responsibility to listen to what the chief has, and then we have the responsibility of making a decision as a board. I don't think there's a member in here that's ever been in leadership that took this lightly. Know whether they like the individual or not, and going from there. And I just want folks to understand that from my standpoint, walking into this 2 months ago, this is not one of the roadblocks as the mayor alone I expected to have to jump over, or hurdles I had to jump over, but it's one that I'm not taking lightly, and that I am listening to you, and I'm making my decisions though based off of how we have to deal with this from a leadership decision. And I wish I could tell you more than that, but I can't.
Thank you, Mayor. Other comments? Okay, hearing none, that will take us to our consent agenda. The only thing I see on there is our board meetings from January 28th. Unless somebody wants to talk about it, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Further comment?
No, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. That will take us to our regular agenda to conduct a public hearing, consider a motion to adopt a resolution R-182 to recognize revenue in the amount of $529,826.73 from Windsor-Severance Fire Rescue and appropriate the same amount to the LFRA General Fund. Could I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are now in a public hearing. Is there anybody in the public that would like to comment on this particular resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I think Emily popped up on the screen.
I'll bet she wants to certify it for the record.
I do. I would love to certify for the record that notice of today's public hearing was duly published as required by law, and there were no public comments submitted on this agenda item prior to today's public hearing.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, comments? Hearing none without any further delay, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, board. I need a motion to adopt resolution R-182 appropriating $529,826.73, LFRA General Fund for the purchase of communication equipment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, that will take us to number 3. Conduct a public hearing and consider a motion to adopt resolution R-183, adopting a supplemental budget regarding the appropriation of monies to and the expenditure of monies from the LFRA Fleet Replacement Fund for the LFRA State of Colorado for the calendar year beginning on the first day of January 2026 and ending on the last day of December 26. Need a motion for a public hearing?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Emily?
And I will certify for the record that notice of today's public hearing was duly published as required by law, and that prior to today's public hearing, there was no public comment submitted on this agenda item either.
Thank you. Okay, we'll open up for public comment. Anybody online?
If anybody online wants to make public comment, please raise your hand.
Okay, without any further comments from the public, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And now need a motion to the effect approving it, please.
So moved. Second.
Further conversation. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay, that will take us to number 4. Consider a motion to approve a contract for a replacement Type 1 fire engine. Chief?
Yeah, thank you. The funds that were just appropriated are for a type 1 engine. The engine that will be replaced is a 2008 that's currently in reserve. It's headed to be the training engine here shortly when a new engine comes in that we ordered in 2023. So this is just the next one in line to be replaced. There's a whole bump down, I should say, of apparatus when the training engine would be sold. Reserve engine that's a 2010 goes into training, a 2017 that's in frontline goes to reserve, a new engine into frontline service. So our replacement account, as you guys know, has been hurting with the funding. We haven't been able to put in it, but one of the goals for us is to try and maintain the high priority apparatus as close as we can to the schedule that we have built, and the type 1 engines are the main engines in every station that runs on 90% of the calls. So that's the ones that we're trying to make sure we fund on our replacement schedule as close as we possibly can.
Chief? Comments from the board on this?
Sure.
Yes.
Chief, what's the cost of that vehicle these days?
The engine itself, had it back in the last one, 1.429, and with equipment 1.645.
So outfitted the way you need it, it's 1.6.
Yeah, some equipment gets moved over from the engine that we sell, hose and things like that. Some of the technology gets upgraded, that just can't. It's not practical to keep it on a 20-year-old engine and move it to a brand new engine.
What's
So it's
the
a mixed
layout, right?
It's at there is a typo. I noticed that it said 700 days in here because that's the first proposal we received. And then that was corrected by the manufacturer. It's actually 800 days for the apparatus. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Other comments, questions? Yeah.
Just one, Chief, as we discussed in our short meeting on Monday on the budget, the one thing I would like to see as part of our priorities, which we'll get to next, but I think it falls into the slide item, is to get back to starting our capital replacement programs and trying to find a spot and make that a priority on the top of the list, as well as funding for staff and the other things. And then from there, any of the other items we need to discuss, but certainly having to come up with it as a one-time expense is substantially different than if it's a 10-year piece of equipment and then a reserve for another 10 or what have you. Putting aside 1/10 a year, then we're taxing appropriately and everybody's getting the benefit from the tax that they paid in that area. So hopefully on the priority, we could change that.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
absolutely. That's where we were, is we were amortizing that out, and every year we were putting money away from the time we put the engine in service. We were putting money away for its replacement, and we've had to pull away from that over the last few years with just the funding issues we've gone through. So that's exactly where we want to get back to. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Amy.
Thank you, and thank you, Chief Ward. So the last few years we stopped amortizing, so we just are kind of frozen. Maybe this question for our finance manager, Smith. Are we just kind of froze where we were, or are those funds depleted, and about when did we stop putting monies aside? And do you happen to know, I don't know if you might have been here at that time or not, but you know what that trigger was, or if monies had like an emergency order for an apparatus or something that, you know, would have caused sort of a kind of us to
So I
go off
wasn't here
track.
for all of it, but
Okay.
I'll answer the pieces I can, and then Chief Ward was here and he can answer more, but my, up until I think 3 years ago, I think we were fairly close to doing what we needed to do. Then there were some budget hiccups. It might actually go back to COVID. I'll stop talking about that piece, but yeah, but we were putting a reduced amount, less than we needed to, away through 2025. For 2026, we were not able to do that.
How, if I could just really quick interrupt, how reduced was it?
It was about up until 2025. So the finance manager before me suggested as a means of trying to meet the budgetary needs to extend the life of the apparatus. So that reduced it to where we were probably about half, roughly
50%,
half
okay.
of what we should have been doing. And that was about 750,000. The other piece of that is extending the life of the apparatus. It only works to a point.
Right.
You can only use something that's so old. And so that method, it was kind of a Band-Aid on one problem that created more issues than the other. And so for 2026, we actually have no contribution to the apparatus replacement plan for 2026.
And we started in, I believe it's 2021, 2022, somewhere in there with the COVID and the reductions we had in budget. At that point, we pulled the funding back from replacing any of the apparatus at the 2 volunteer stations in the Big Thompson Canyon.
Okay.
So that was the first reduction we've done. So there's been a total of 3 over the last 6 years or so of us reducing the amount we were putting into that fund.
Was that, how did you guys arrive, since I'm a new board member, how did we arrive at that decision? Was that a decision made in, like, primarily by finance? Was that a decision as a board directive? And I don't know, if maybe Jeff, you could answer that for me. Sorry, Chair Swanton. But how did we kind of get to that? Because the cities had to cut too. The cities had to make, so I'm not saying this, I'm just wondering, how do we get there and how do we move forward?
It was staff driven.
Okay.
We knew the target that we needed to achieve.
Right.
And so as a staff, we worked on the budget to come up with where we could be. And then obviously it goes to the board for approval. So,
The pie's only so big.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Oh, good. I'm gonna,
I have a follow-up.
You got a bad head. Go for it.
I got a follow-up
You
question
gotta
for
do
you,
that.
good chief. So, and Andrea, you too. So what's the delta? If we had done everything and funded it the way you requested, what is the delta between what we have and what we need?
I don't have that.
We can get it though.
Just give me a rough estimate, chief. I mean, I'm not gonna hold you to it. I'm just, is it 300K or 1.2 mil? I mean, do you have any idea?
Well, I can tell you this, with the appropriation that we just made. The balance, for the replacement apparatus replacement fund is roughly 2.5. We're expected to be 2.5 million. So. As a matter of practicality, we don't want to ever spend that down to zero,
Sure,
because like
right.
we just had last year where
Right.
we had one that was totaled, we had to get something right away, so.
Okay, I'm not expecting the answer. I'm just curious if you had on top of your head. No, thank you.
And you asked one of the questions I had, so I'm glad to let you go, because the only question you have. But first, I want to say, I love the waterfall aspect of you reusing the equipment when it goes down. What's the next step after training? Is it auction or is it?
Yeah, most of the time we can sell them. Local departments, the last two engines that we sold, one of them ended up in Wellington and the other one up in Cheyenne at Laramie County Fire Authority. And the one that went to Wellington is actually on to its next home in Livermore. So it's been sold or donated, one time after that.
All our relatives have owned it. That's good. That's good to hear.
So if it's something we can sell locally, we try and do that to some departments that need it, that could use it. And there are used fire truck brokers out there that'll deal them national too. And so one of the trucks we sold a few years ago went to Montana.
Well, and I also want to say this, chief, and this is coming from the city, we're well aware of the aspect of the put off of capital purchases, whether it be capital purchases for the fire department, police department, or even that when it comes to the city itself. And trying to figure out a way to be able to deal with that as we go into the future is one of the top priorities I've got out there, both as a board member and as mayor of the city, of trying to figure out how we can fill those gaps, because we can't continue to add the quality of life services, so to speak, we have out there if we're taking away from the public safety services that are needed to make us go this way. So I just wanted you to know that's kind of where I'm pushing.
Yeah, I gotta go again. So question on Chief and Andrea, help me out a little bit. So we're gonna have 2.5 million after we put these funds in there. But we're gonna turn around and spend 1.4 million, correct? So we'll have because we gotta,
That calculates that.
that's with that included.
With
So we still have
1.645.
2.5. And how short are we then? Do you know that? We're back to the delta, but I'm trying to back into that a little bit. If today, let's say we have a 8-year-old truck and we're gonna replace it at 10, and we have a 6-year-old and a 4-year, I mean, what's that amount that we've deferred starting a few years ago or otherwise?
Heavy apparatus, we're behind probably 2 at this point. So that would be, one of them's not an engine, probably 2 million, 2.1.
So about 1.5 million a year that we
Yeah.
need to be putting into that fund. So we can prepare for this next, and if we want to catch up, then we maybe need 1 or 1.2, 1.4, and then slowly back it up into that. So just walking into our budget discussions, which are going to start today, and start thinking through that. And then we also have the equipment side. I don't know if for bunker gear, if we have a replacement program for that. I know on the radios, we didn't, so that's why we had to approve the radios for the full, but we're doing that on a lease purchase or a lease program rather than a purchase, but we'll have that annual cost added as well. So if there's anything else that we deferred or decided not to do the last couple of years, if we didn't know what that is for the next discussion, not today on the budget. If there's any other pieces of equipment, buildings or other things that we set aside funds for, that we know if we deferred any of those as well. Just so we can start giving that thought, because those are going to be big numbers, as we know. Thank you.
Andrea?
Thanks, I'll try and make it my last. So resolution R 183, we just appropriated 1.645 from account 606 replacement fund. That empties that fund?
No, there's 2 point.
That's the 2.5,
Yeah.
okay, that's what I wasn't sure when you mentioned that, okay, that was my only question.
Further comments?
And Mr. Chairman, Emily needs to help us a little bit with a motion if we're going that direction. There's still a few things with the contract we're working through. In fact, one of them is it has a spot for my signature and it needs your signature, and she just sent me an updated one today. So she can help us with some language there.
Okay, great, thank you.
Chief Ward has, so for the board's information, the contract that is before you is our form apparatus purchase agreement. It's based on a similar agreement I did with SVI a few years ago. But Chief Ward, can you advise, have they seen this version of the proposed contract yet?
No, they haven't.
Okay. So the board has a couple of options. We could come back for a future special meeting if the board wants to approve it after SVI's review. My hope is that any changes from SVI will be minimal or none because the contract should look very familiar to them. The other option would be to approve the apparatus purchase agreement subject to such modifications as may be approved by chief staff and legal counsel, other than, of course, the price.
I'll move to the second motion presented by Amanda.
Okay, is there a second?
That way you can walk out of here knowing you're doing what you're doing.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, further conversation? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Discussion of 2027 LFRA budget priorities. So Chief and Andrea,
Okay, let
we'll
me
turn it over to you.
bring a presentation up here. Okay, we need to start 2027's budget today. So we're kind of looking at this like we did several years ago when we started budget processes where we looked at the priorities first. And so where we're starting today is no dollar amounts. It's the priorities. And are these priorities, does the board agree with you with those priorities? So we put the work into working on those priorities and coming back to you with the costs and stuff. So that's kind of where we're at today with this presentation. But before we kick that off, I'd like Andrea to talk a little bit about the meeting we had on Monday with City Finance and Director Thompson and is wearing his other hat as City Manager and Chairman Swanee about budget process a little bit. And then I know Brian from City Finance is here as well. So Andrea, I'll turn it to you.
So as has been mentioned, Monday, we met and talked about a few items of basically the process. What our goal is to pretty much match up with the city's schedule for our schedule. So revenue we need to be putting in this week for the budgeted revenue. And then after we have the discussion today about what your priorities are for expenses, we'll start to incorporate that into the city software. And at some point, of course, have some more conversation with this board looking to actually approve the budget in August. But of course, we'll need some more discussion before then for this board to have an idea of the partner contributions we're looking at and those types of things. As far, one of the things we talked about was cost allocation. Brian suggested that for now, we start with the same number as last year, and that will of course need to be adjusted later in the process. But basically, we're trying to line up our timing to make things as smooth as possible so that City's Finance has the numbers they need and the boards have the numbers they need. Ultimately, we would like to be budgeting more in line with the strategic plan, but our current strategic plan is not working the way it was intended, you know, when it happened, when it's done, we had some different assumptions than we have now. So for 2027, we're kind of, you know, trying to make it a year to stay stable and then hopefully align with a future strategic plan. Again,
I think our goal, and when we went into the meeting with Brian is, how can we work to meet the timelines that the city needs without, and these are my words, without cutting the legs out from underneath our boards? Because I don't want to hear from this board or the rural district board that, wow, I heard that somewhere else first. And so that's a real juggling act for us to try and make sure that we're meeting the needs that Brian has, and then keeping everybody informed on the different boards. So everybody's getting the information timely and that you're not hearing about it somewhere else first. And so that's a challenge for us. So it's a process we're gonna work through this year and hopefully improve it from where we were last year.
Can I ask just a question real quick, Chief? I think you bring up a good point, because I've sat on city council where I've said, why didn't we hear this? And I think it's indicative upon us sitting here that we're supposed to be letting our board know what we're doing. These two here, I think, are supposed to be letting the rural board know what's going on. The three of us here, at least, Andrew and I are supposed to be letting the city council know what's going on. I think getting that piece in there, and I'll be the first one to say, at city council, one of the biggest problems we've had is getting to reports of boards and commissions on the council, on our agenda and where it sits in there, that we haven't gotten there. So we're working to get that piece done, but let us help you be that voice, is what I'm getting ready to say. So that way you're not doing it, and if anybody is hearing it secondhand, it's our fault, not yours.
I appreciate that. Brian, did you want to add anything about that meeting or?
Yes, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Very quickly, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say, I really appreciated the time we had Monday with Acting Chief Ward and with Andrea. Kind of like Director Thompson was talking about, we need to agree on the core principles of what we want to do in 2027. That's personnel. And then we do have this, you know, capital replacement schedule that we need to look at, and then let those items inform kind of a broader approach to how we're going to go forward after 2027. But I think it was a great meeting. The timeframe, we always have this chicken and egg thing. We have it with a lot of our other partners too at the city, where who's going to approve the budget first? Will it be the board or will it be the city council? So I think we can work through those logistical challenges, especially with the director. So no, I just appreciate the chance to talk and just say I'm excited to work on not only 2027, but see how that's going to inform the future years and make these conversations a little more repetitive as opposed to being novel, new challenges. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Brian.
I guess it's a question for both Andrew and Brian. So the August date for the budget, those are hard and fast numbers, or those 90% numbers? I mean, what do you need and what do you need, Andrea?
you mean the numbers that you're presented in August are those?
Right, I just want to understand that.
So historically, as far as I can tell, those have been the hard and fast numbers by August that have been presented to you. Last year was the exception.
Okay.
So that is my intention at this point.
Yeah, that's always the goal. You know, the actual drop deadline is November when we actually adopt the budget, but we don't tell anybody that.
Don't tell Brian your
Just
secrets.
hear it.
I unheard that. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Damn it, Brian.
So we'll start into the presentation if you're good with that, Chairman.
Yes, please.
It's really only 5 slides. My ask is that if we could get through the presentation and hold the questions till the end. And if there's questions that are easy to answer, we'll jump on them and answer them now. If they're not, we'll capture those and so we can bring answers back to you. So we'll try and work it that way today. And again, I just want to stress, there's no answers here. This is just about priorities for the year and making sure we're aligned with the priorities so then we can put the work into it to see where we go. There's no commitment of funding in here. We're not saying we need you to approve anything here today. It's all just about the priorities so we can get to work. We broke these down into our 5 R's, And if you're not familiar with the 5 Rs, it started as the 4 Rs in 2013 or so, and it's been part of our mission ever since. A few years ago, we added the 5th R, which is resiliency, into that. So that's how we broke down the categories. And we heard this statement from Director Thompson and Chairman Swanee a couple weeks ago at a meeting. Take care of what we have. And so that's kind of the theme that we carried forward for this presentation in our budget. We're going to divide up the next few slides. So I think Chief Smith starts with response.
Yeah, so for me, I also kind of took this as our threats and weaknesses, I guess, and another approach. And so I really focused on our battalion chiefs. The 3 shift battalion chiefs anyways that we have 33 people assigned to underneath them on their shift, and out of that number, 11 of them are their company officers and direct reports. So it's a span of control thing. We, at least with the response side, we have put mechanisms in place to at least cover the first wave of something big happening, right? And that's our CAD system. We have a great relationship with Bertha. We have automatic components, so if maybe they're busy, there's going to be a PFA BC that comes into the system. So response wise, at least for the first incident, we're okay. But beyond that, then we're not. We're relying on what some people would call the carpet walkers or the day walkers, us chiefs that are maybe on duty to come in and help cover the system. Or if there's someone that's listening, or because we do a lot of page notifications, that they'll come in and back up the system. So that's one side of it. The other side, which I think is even the more bigger threat or weakness, however you want to view it, is the leadership on the shift. You have one BC that's trying to connect with all of those people, mostly the company officers, because they need to lead their own people, so to speak. But when you're stretched that thin with the calls that they're running already, and then trying to do leadership and growth, are they following expectations? Are they following our creeds or principles? Those pieces, it's just super hard. Strategic plan, I like carrying these around because that's what guides what we do. As you know, our 2023 strategic plan has pieces in it, but we're not following it because we're still trying to figure out how do we follow it, right? But since 2012, we identified the need for the 2nd Battalion Chief to come in onto the shift because we knew the people. And that's partly because we added stations, we added companies. We knew it was going to get busier. We were going to hit that point. We targeted in 2024 that we needed another battalion chief. And because of the varying pieces of the finances, we weren't able to help us not to defer. Is the other side of it. So I just want to bring that up. It is important. I worry about their span of control, so to speak, and the people that they're trying to take care of leadership wise on the ship. That's one of our pillars, our response. The next one kind of broke it into 3 different categories in our readiness. The overtime piece, and I know you guys either talked about it or heard about it. It's super important for us to have those overtime abilities, not only just to cover the shift, right? Someone calls out sick and we didn't have the staff on duty, we've got to backfill that seat. That's obviously number 1. But outside of that, we also need the overtime training. We are a heavy certification driven organization. To be at a certain level, be a captain in this organization, you have to have certain certifications to get to that level. Well, we afford our people the opportunity. But since we've been starting, I want to say 2023, changing on how we've been funding our training component, it's now as tight as I think we can get it. I really hope it doesn't get any tighter than it is, but we used to pay people to go to a class to get the certification they needed to get promoted. Now we're borderline what that looks like. We'll backfill their shift, but if it's a day off, we won't pay them to go to that class. Now, if it's required because of something that changed in their seat, we will pay for that whole thing. But to help someone promote and get to that next level, it's not as easy as it used to be 3 years ago. Now it's pretty tight. So that's a little part of it. The overtime. The other big one that I didn't mention, but we have a big call. A diet call or something where they're committed for a while. We need to backfill the system. So those pieces come out of overtime because we'll send a notification. We don't do it a lot. I would say a couple times a year is our average. But we'll send a notification out saying, hey, we need you to come backfill the system. So that's the first bullet.
the second one, the captain's program. So our shift captains are also station captains. And that concept, we added special programs under each station. So station one, they take care of the pre-plans for our organization. That's our crews going out, looking at a building and trying to give us these particulars. Where's the gas shut off? Where's the electric shut off? Is there any hazards in the building? That type of stuff. Station two is responsible for tech rescue and water rescue program. Station three is our IT program. Station five is our EMS program. They also used to do TAC fire or tactical fire, which is a component of LPD SWAT team. That captain is still responsible for that program, but we've split that up just to 12 or so people. I wish I can, but hopefully Adam's not here. But roughly 12 people that are part of that team. So if there's a SWAT activation, that group of people go. It's not just particular to the station anymore. Station six takes care of our ARC program. They also used to do our bunker gear and stuff, but that has gone over to logistics, and that's with the help of filling that position that we got recently. Station seven is our wildland program, and also taking care of our volunteers that are part of the canyon area. Station 10 is our hazmat program. Out of those, the ones that are really taxing us are, and I know you've heard it, our IT program. Captain Schutz does a wonderful job with what he has, but he also divvies that down to the other folks that are assigned to the station. So he's trying to take advantage of it. But unfortunately, that is probably the heaviest lift out of any of the other programs that we have right now. And I'm going to read these to you just because I feel like it has at least a feel effect. So things that are responsible underneath the IT program: cell phones, the SIM cards, the NDTs, all the station cell boosters that were needed so that the NDTs stay connected. Any of the Starlink devices that we have, or Station 9's connectivity, all of the station alerting, hardware management of all the computers of every station, admin, doesn't matter. AV equipment for all the stations. We are trying to stand up the scanner component for Pulse Point. You have Pulse Point, you can hear the radio traffic. That's been gifted to us basically by an old volunteer that we had. We didn't even know it until last year. And he's moving, so we've got to pick that piece up. So that's something new that they'll be adding to their plate. Active 911 is a app that we use for our notifications for folks. Various software programs throughout the organization, including our records management system. And that's our reporting requirements to the state and federal folks. And probably missing some, so sorry, David, but I'm missing on some of those pieces. So again, it's the threat, it's the weakness, I guess, in our organization. The part that I get worried about the most is that the captain really should be the company officer. Yes, they need to manage the station and the apparatus, that's an expectation. But when they have a huge or a high program commitment, it takes away from their ability to even just go train with their folks. And then the last two that I want to mention is the EMS program and the wildland program. Out of those station captain responsibilities. Back to the certification requirement that we have. Station 5 helps us with the EMS side of the house. So they schedule all of the continuing education that we need. They'll coordinate with our training staff if there's something there. They'll coordinate with Thompson Valley if there's something there. It's just a heavy lift, but it's another certification we can't let go. We require everybody to have EMT at a minimum for our paid staff. So that is being, I guess, managed by another station captain. The wildland program, and this is different than the wildfire module that I have listed up there, but we, as an organization, when I walked in the door back in '97, we required everybody to have a red card. So that's part of the piece that they are making sure we get the training for. There's annual red card requirements that we have to go through. We've incorporated years ago, just to help take some of the pressures off. Our physical now counts for at least our arduous pack test that we have to do for a red card, so that helps a little bit. But the other thing that kind of, I would say, came into play in the last few years that's somewhat of a lift is our documentation and connectivity with the state for our cards. So we can't be on an incident or go on a deployment unless we're in the system, so to speak. So we have someone on each shift that's taking care of each individual on that shift just to keep that data updated. And then they help try to keep us connected for all the other certifications that we want under that discipline, so to speak. And then the last one is the wildfire module. And as you know, we stood that up in 24. We're going to be starting our 3rd season this year. 1 full-time position and 4 seasonals that are there. And they have got a boatload of work done so far. I mean, it's awesome to see the amount of work. Year 1 was a little bit of a struggle. We lost the initial coordinator that we had, but we had someone else internally take that. But we've been able to get partnered with either the county, watersheds that are in our area to focus on what we've learned. If you all recall, we had our community wildfire protection plan created in 2023, which is basically the better way of saying it, the Bible for us to do the work in our area. And it's not, I think a lot of people would think all the work's in the mountains, and it's not. We've done a ton of work with the city. We've helped them do burn projects. We want to do bigger things because we know that the need's there. For neighbors to the east in Greeley, they usually do a big, what's called a broadcast burn every year. So there's definitely needs in our entire district. So for me, that is another weakness or maybe threat, depending on your viewpoint. It's great that we have it, super, super helpful. But because of the things that we are now tied into, after the Alexander Mountain fire, the state came to us and said, hey, there's a grant specifically that would go to you if you're interested. And so we put in for it. We would be the grant administrator, and we'd have to be the worker bees, so to speak. That is approved. We're just waiting for the rest of the steps to come through. $1.3 million of a project, 3 to 5 year window. Chief Warden and I had this conversation the other day, but we probably need to sit with you all and give you a presentation on these grants that we are tied into, so that we understand what that threat or weakness is and what that really looks like. We would like to take advantage of these grants that we're a part of at some point. That one particularly, can we do term employees? Can we hire full-time staff, but underneath that grant? We want to work through those steps. The other one is the CWDG, which is being ran by the county. That's a $9.8 million grant that's going right through our district. We're not the only one. Estes is part of it, Big Thompson Watershed Coalition's county. So there's a lot of partners in that one, which is nice. But again, we said, hey, we'd be willing to do some of these pieces. Like, we have people, right? Granted, it's only 4 seasonals and a full-time position, but we have people. So those are the big ones. But the one that just came out recently, and I'd say is a threat that we're waiting to see what happens, but the mountain pine beetle is here. And the Forest Service and the State Forest Service are already talking about stopping the ability or disallowing ability to cut in the summer seasons. And I'll talk about it in our other PowerPoint that we gave you guys, but our seasonals are going to be starting up here in May. Well, if the state or the feds say, hey, no cutting, there's work we can do, but it's not the same. And the threat is our seasonals are, 6 months and then they're done. So then what do we do after? So I would say those are my 3 areas. And
Chief Ward, I know you asked for no questions, but I just want to get a clarification from Chief Smith if I can. And that's the mountain pine beetle. That's the relative of the original pine beetle, but is actually hitting in a lower elevation now, which really affects our lower wildland area. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't have the full details. I know Kennedy Decker definitely has them.
It's invasive as hell from what I've heard. So
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, resources. Now we're to the kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier. So the number one thing on resources we have is that apparatus replacement fund, and trying to work our way back into having that funded at the level it needs to be. And again, if that matches up with your priorities, then that's where we go to work to come back and say, this is what it's going to cost, or we recommend, over 2 years or 3 years, we catch up or whatever, but we'll put the work in to do that and bring to you. The other one, let me back up on the apparatus replacement, just so you guys have an idea of how we run the apparatus replacement. the frontline engine, like the type 1 engine that you guys just approved, that's in all the stations, runs 90% of the calls. That for us, we use it as a 10 to 12 year frontline life cycle, and then 5 to 7 in reserve, and then it rotates down to the training center for training use for its last few years of its life, and that could vary depending on when an engine comes in. We have a little bit of leeway in there, 10 to 12 years. It's not a hard, at 10 years, we replace it, just because the number of frontline, the number of reserve doesn't all match up, because we have 6 frontline engines and 3 reserve engines and the one training engine. So it doesn't match up that everything is on a cycle that is set at 10 years, but that's our goal. Other things like the ladder truck and the tower, we only have 2, a frontline and a reserve. So we have them set as 10 years frontline and 10 years in reserve, because we only have the 2. Wildland trucks are, the type 6 small engines are 20 to 22 years in frontline service, and we really don't have reserves in those. So we built that schedule based on a lot of statistics, costs, what fleet maintenance is seeing. And that's kind of how we landed where we're at, knowing that call volume continues to go up. So we always monitor that. We were at 12 to 13 year frontline use just a few years ago, and we backed that down to 10 to 12, because we were seeing that about the 10-year mark is where we start seeing a spike in our maintenance on the apparatus. And I have to tell you, and everybody sitting in this room knows that we have phenomenal maintenance folks with the city of Loveland that takes care of our apparatus. They do such a great job for us. I think we're probably luckier than any fire department in northern Colorado as far as that goes. So they do a really good job of taking care of our apparatus. So we have a whole replacement plan. All the different types of vehicles are broke out in different timeframes for replacement based on use and cost of repairs. The second one is the capital fund. Just a couple examples for you. Station 7 and 10 that the LFRA own now. The 2 newer stations, fortunately they're newer, but concrete in front of the fire station that engine travels over several times a day cracks. Crack is okay, but then eventually it starts to come apart and creates holes, and that's not okay. So then we need to get that repaired. Right now, something significant like that, an HVAC unit that goes out, if you happen to travel by the training center, we've got a couple storage buildings down there that were existing to the property we bought to the west. Take a look at the roof on those 2. There's it's probably about half shingled, half not. And items like that we don't have a capital replacement fund to take care of big items like that. And we have to remember that LFRA owning capital assets like that, buildings like that, is still fairly new for us. Until Station 7 came along, we really didn't own any buildings as the LFRA. The city owns the stations that are in the city. The rural district owns the 2 stations up in the canyon. So this is still fairly new for us. We've worked to build annual maintenance budgets in there so we can take care of carpet cleaning and coming to repair the hot water heater and landscaping and stuff like that. But we haven't gone to that next level of getting us a capital fund. So that's priority 2. And then the third one I put on there is, just so we don't lose sight of this, is Fire Station 3. I should say between COVID and the sales tax on food piece, Fire Station 3 was a high priority capital project for the city. We know that station has some issues. The biggest one, I think, for me in taking care of our firefighters is there's 1 shower in that facility. And the firefighters come back from a nasty medical call, a structure fire. 1 person can go shower while the other 2 wait. That's the only station that has an open dorm room, which was perfectly fine when that station was built in the 1980s. But now you have different genders that utilize that station, and that open dorm room probably isn't the route we should be here in our department. So I just want to make sure we keep that on the list, that's something we really need to consider. We were far enough along that the station is designed, the property is there, the city owns it, and then we had to stop at that point. Facilities maintenance is a great partner in that and in getting us to that point. So I just don't want to lose sight of that one. Relationships, there's just a couple things on here that to talk about. One of them, I don't know how this is going to play out yet. Our dispatch services over at LPD, they're bringing on a new person to deal with the CAD system that runs the dispatch computers basically. And we have a lot of information that goes in that. So across the street, if there's a structure fire, that system automatically populates what apparatus need to respond to that versus the same address and it being a fire alarm, which one apparatus responds to that. And that all populates into there and then it's automatically dispatched out to the stations. And there's a lot of background stuff in there. It's connected to the mobile data terminals and the engines and stuff. We have updates to that all the time as our response area changes, especially out in the Johnstown area with inclusions, exclusions, as apparatus changes, staffing changes, the automatic aid, mutual aid changes with different agreements with different neighboring partners. We have to make changes in that. So dispatch is hiring a position this year to do that. That's a much needed position. We don't believe there's anything wrong with that. The position is definitely needed, but there's a cost to that then that gets shared amongst the users of the dispatch center. So LPD, Thompson Valley EMS, Berthoud Fire, and us to do that. I'm still working through what our IGA says. We have an IGA with all those agencies and LPD on how dispatch works and how we pay for it and stuff. We met with LPD last week, trying to get my arms wrapped around that because some of it says we pay 2 years in arrears for that. So I just need to figure that out. But there is a potential, whether it's 26 or I'm sorry, 27 or 28, that we're going to have a portion of this dispatch CAD services position that we need to cover. So wanted to put that on the radar. The other one is the Office of Emergency Management and Monday. One of the things that was asked of us is, are there things we're doing that maybe we shouldn't be doing? And we haven't fully looked at everything, obviously, in the organization because it's only been 2 days since that conversation. But one of the things that prior to that we've been having conversations about is not that nobody should be doing OEM. Somebody has to do emergency management. And historically here in Loveland, it's been the fire department. And just we're looking at it as the city outgrown that model. A lot of cities move that to the city, having that reports directly to the city manager, deputy city manager, however it's laid out as a city function. And then the police department, the fire department, Thompson Valley EMS, we all have liaisons that work with that person. And then we respond and have our people at the EOC when we have those disasters. And we have a battalion chief that's filling that OEM role right now is the city emergency manager, and he's a battalion chief for LFRA, doing a great job. But we have a lot of needs for battalion chief work here within the organization. So could that be something that over the next year or two we have discussions about? And is there a better way for us to be doing emergency management? In the end, there may not be, but that may be something that we could look at and do differently to benefit both the city and LFRA. The unique position we're in is Chief Carmesino fills that role as the emergency manager for the city. Most of the work that we do for emergency management for us is the county, because most of our large emergencies are wildland fires and the flood and those kind of things. And so most of the time we're working with county emergency management on those type of things. We've had very few, actually with the city. So it's just kind of interesting. I think it'd be a good good exercise to have that discussion and see if there's something we could be doing better there. Now turn it to Andrea, and Andrea.
The last or final area of focus is resiliency, and part of resiliency includes, as you can see, compensation and benefits. Keep us competitive, and also to just focus on what our employees really value. And our employees have told us very clearly that they value base pay as a top priority. Looking back at our compensation history, in relation to our comparable departments, in 2022 and 2023, we were about in the 30th percentile range. In 2024, we improved. We got around the 50th. And then in 2025, we just plummeted. And 2026, we are now at the very bottom. So every department is above us in terms of their base pay compensation. For years, since I've been here, our objective has been to get to the 70th percentile. Our goal for 2027 is to at least return to the 50th percentile for compensation for that base pay. The next area would be the FPPA disability, death and disability. So FPPA is the Fire and Police Pension Association. And the death and disability plan is a statutory requirement in Colorado that provides on-duty and off-duty coverage for our sworn members and their beneficiaries. So in the case of their death or disability. Standard practice among departments is for the employer to pay for that. Out of all of our comparison departments, all of them pay for FPPA, death and disability. They all pay 100% except one pays 50%. LFRA pays 0%. So that's another 4% off of our members' salaries right off the top.
And everybody can ask, who's the one that pays the
50% long month.
Okay.
So we've had this on our benefits considerations list since I started, and that's been all, I just hit 9 years and it was on it before I started, because I have emails prior to that were forwarded to me. And our sworn personnel have ranked it as one of the top new potential benefits they would like us to implement. And then the last one is maintaining our medical insurance contributions, the split between employer and employee. That's also a critical item. And it also ranks among the top valued benefits for both our sworn and our civilian staff. And thus it's making it a key component to our total compensation package. It's one of the things, even candidates that are coming here, it's one of the first things they're looking at is that medical insurance contribution. It's the pay, medical insurance contribution, and retirement contributions are usually the first things they're asking about. So those are the top 3 compensation and benefits items we would like to focus on for 2027. And then the last area is resiliency. Turning it over to you.
Yeah. So the other resiliency item is accreditation. Chief Smith can chip in if I miss something here, but our accreditation needs to be renewed. We need to submit for that in March of 2028. It's a big process that affects the entire department because we need to do it, our self-assessment manual, community risk assessment, and our standards of cover all need to be renewed before we submit that. So we can't wait till 2028 to start that work. That's a priority that we need to concentrate on in 2027 in order to meet the deadline in 2028.
The one last piece is an updated strategic. So it's a heavy lift for 2027.
So we made it through 5 hours. I think everything we presented relates back to our people and customer service and what we have now, and there's different solutions, I think, to attack each of those areas. And so the discussion we would like to have is, are those meeting priorities that you see? And then we can put the time into going and looking at those. We can go back to any of the slides that you want. Again, if we don't know the answer off the top of our head, we'll write it down and we'll compile it and get it back to you. Any questions?
Yes, Jim.
I'll go after that side.
Just so I understand this correctly. We underpaid compared to all departments, and then we say, you're underpaid, I want you to pay for FPPA, death and disability and medical insurance. Yeah, something ain't right in Denmark here.
Well,
I'll go backwards. I got a bunch of questions, but Andrea, so you said we kind of slid off the chart in 2025. What percentage are we?
For 2026, you mean what percentile or how
Right,
much
because you
below?
said we dropped down. So where are we on the percent?
We're the bottom. Everyone is
But-
above us.
But what's the percentile?
Yeah, what's the percentile?
Zero.
Zero.
Zero. So if we want to get to if we were to get to the 50th this year, at minimum, we would need an additional 4%.
Okay,
Minimum.
okay, that helps. Thank you.
Jim.
And I'm gonna go through each of the pages real quick and then I'll throw it all out there, and I like where we're heading. So let me start there. I think this is a great place to be. Last year, what we did an exception report, and this was after we decided that we were contributing 2.5% more. We got the things that we weren't able to provide for. We didn't go through everything else, and so I'm still learning some of that and trying to figure it out. And thank you, Andrea, for forwarding, the more of the details so I could start to absorb that and get a good feeling for it. Because each of these pages are $1 million plus. Let's be honest, when you go through, and we all know that we're not going to come up with a 20% increase or 25% increase in the budget in 1 year. So it's going to have to be a little more strategic and how we go about it. It may or may not tie to the strategic plan, because I've already heard we're not following it anyhow today and on Monday as well, to the point, and we need to update it because it's a little bit old. But I like this direction better than last year, where it was just kind of the exception. The first thing on the exception report last year was salaries for the firefighters and everything else. And so I view it a little bit differently. That should already been included in the 2.5% that was given. And so to me, that's number one, is take care of your people, number one. That's the basis for the organization. Then you build on the rest. The equipment, I understand why the last couple years we haven't put in the replacement cost. I'm looking at all the numbers, but there's other things we did do that cost money that we traditionally hadn't done. So I'm back to my statement on Monday that we need to look at all the things we do, and are they still serving the purpose they need to be served, or are they underutilizing that? So there may be a program we started that benefited 1,000 people, a couple of years ago, and today it benefits 10. Why are we still doing that program? And then government, all too often when we offer it, it's really hard to take it away. So I really want to take a step back, and what are we doing that we shouldn't be doing? And then what are we not doing that we should be doing? We changed the city's pay system this last year. I know we had the discussion last year that you try to follow what the city's doing. We changed our process. So what we do now, we do a market adjustment plus a performance opportunity. And it depends on where you're at in your range. So every year now we'll be adjusting the market so we don't fall behind that. We're at 50%, 2 years later, we're at the bottom again. And that's kind of what we're doing, just performance increases, but we weren't doing, and then if you're top down your range, we were doing bonuses. We did away with all those things. We no longer do bonuses. If you're top down your range, you're already above midpoint, which is your market pay. So I would like to have talks about that. I think it's very important we get that back up, but would like to see a market adjustment and a performance stipend in there, because in the market, you don't fall behind so quickly if we were doing it instead of just doing all performance. So we changed ours last year coming into this year's budget to make sure that we adjusted ourselves and didn't fall so far behind as we tend to. I jumped around. I'm going to go back to response real quick. Thank you all for letting me go off in my normal stint that I tend to do once in a while.
I tried to get him a clock.
I know, I'm trying to behave myself. Well, a little bit. So on the shift leadership, agreed, but I still have questions on the 13 positions, and let me share why. So And this is something I have to walk into our budget on the city side because it'd be a hit to us. The rural board, thank you, provided for funding for 3 years for 13 positions that were authorized. None of the 13, not all the 13 positions have been hired. Last time I heard it was 6 or 7 that we had hired out of the 13 a few meetings ago. That said, the question is, should we hire those or some of these other needs? We probably need to revisit that issue. Otherwise, I then have to come up with 80% of the 13 in 2027 in the city budget, which is a big number, which already puts well over any amount percentage wise that I may give to other departments. That means I have to cut my pie because my pie is not going to grow that much. I got to cut the pie different again. That means I got to slice from some other department in the city to provide the 80% in 2027. And that's a year that we would get hit with those 3. So I need to know more about that and the numbers of that so I can prep on our side as we go through. First, we got to learn, which we'll learn next week. I think it's early next week. We're going to talk about how big the pie is going to be. So
The revenue projection.
yeah, the revenue projections, because we do those first, and then we'll be able to determine that. So again, just stepping back into that, those 13 positions, I think we need to talk about once again and just make sure we're where we're at, because I know there's a couple others, because when you talk about coverage on your side for in particular IT, right now the city does provide some assistance in the IT area, but is there a better way that I could do it to help a little bit and free up some of the time of the VC and their shift that they're trying to do all that work on? I mean, there may be things we could do differently or create the civilian position to have an IT position at the fire full time. And that may be a different direction as well, but then freeing up the VC to do the other training and the other things they need to do. So I'm just thinking out loud. I'm just going through real quick and so give all thought to this when you come back. And then on readiness overtime, I still don't totally grasp overtime. I know a few years ago you hired rovers on the firefighter level, but some of the 13 positions are back to I think it was lieutenant or whatever you were going to lieutenant is the next one. I don't know how many of those we hired. And then obviously captain is another one that you have on there. The captain program is how do we get greater functionality out of that, because we're already putting a lot of burden on them and not having time to do otherwise. So I really need to spend a little bit of time understanding it better, because I don't know how we use the rovers, where if they're just on shift and one day we have nobody taking a vacation, so we got an extra person on shift, or do we bring them in only when we know somebody's going to be absent because it was scheduled accordingly, and we maximize our overtime and eliminate then the overtime of the coverage and everything else. I just don't know what we do, but I like to have a feeling for that. I'd feel better about it. Captain program, I get, and then wildfire. Resources, apparatus replacement, huge. When I heard that we spent down a lot of what we had, that's never good news, because like you said, you're 10 or 12 years. I'm used to having 10 years and then you put it as the backup truck for a period of time, usually, up to 10, but try not to, especially with ladders, you'll be at a lesser time with that, but 10's kind of the commonality. So I'm glad we're moving back in that area. So we're gonna have to put something toward that, because I want to at least not fall behind again and defer it like we have the last couple of years, and we need to get back to a good spot. So to me, that would be the top of those 3. Capital fund. The radio surprised me when I heard they were somewhere 18 years old and things when we had that discussion on the replacement and doing that. I would assume in the future, once we get through this, once we start losing a few of those radios, granted under the lease, they'll replace them, but want to make sure that we start replacing a few each year. We've run into that on a few sides at the city too, where all of a sudden we have to come up with all this money at one time when we should have been replacing so many each year. So you have a continual replacement program. So I want to revisit that maybe in a different light, but you got the bunker gear, you got a ton of things that we probably don't have money for. We don't on the city side either, to be frank about it. We ran into that with roofs and things like that. So I put those as the priority. If not, and I get a leaky roof, then I got to replace drywall. I got mold. Now I got all these additional costs that if we would have just done the roof first. So it's more about taking care of what we have first. And so I appreciate that's in here. Then station 3, obviously that would be one. Dispatch CAD, the regional dispatch seems to be working well. Obviously they have the new building they're moving into, which is where also the emergency ops are located. I'll sit down and be happy to discuss emergency ops. I've had it in all areas. I've had it under me, I've had it in fire. I've actually took it out of the city manager's office and put it in fire one time, just because I thought it was better functionality there, because you're usually up to speed on most things and have all your NIMS training and everything else, where many others in the organization don't have that. So I'm happy to talk about, should the city take that one back over or not, what that looks like. Traditionally, for me, it's been a civilian. The last 3 I've had were retired firefighters that were in that position, so for what it's worth. Comp, I totally agree, but I want to talk a little bit about the pay system itself, so I can understand that maybe for whatever it's worth. I know we changed ours, and I probably wasn't a hero to some probably liked it because we don't fall behind the market as quickly. But certainly something we need to do. And then the death and disability, maybe we start off, and granted, we're at 0. Maybe we do 25%, and then we look to do 50 and maybe 70, and do it over a few years. We don't need to get it all in 1 year. If everybody else has it and we're not in that lane, we probably need to look at maybe it's as small as 10%, because we already have a bunch of numbers in there. I don't know, but appreciate having it in there. Medical, what's our split? Is it 80-20?
There's one plan that's 80-20 and one that's 90-10.
And
And then
90
the high deductible.
high deductibles from 90-10, okay. And then accreditation, it's great, but you know, if there's something, because that takes a lot of time. I'm putting all the policies in place, getting buy-in from everybody and so forth, but again, I appreciate that. That's something we should aspire to do, but depending on the costs and already the obligations of the over ask for many of our command staff to do multiple things, that maybe we will roll that a little bit more if we could, or what have you. That's it, going through it all. The only other see what else I have here. Again, last year was the exception report, and rather than looking at everything, and so I'd rather just take a deep dive if we can this year. I mean, that's going to drag us into the discussion on the financing model. That's going to drag us into the discussion of the, you know, what are we going to do in the future to fund things. And no different on our side. I'll be quite frank. I mean, at the city, we're not funding a lot of our capital replacement and other things right now, and that's the challenge that we have. We're trying to balance a whole bunch of things. We got to a point that we're, you know, balanced, but it's challenged. The last one that I requested on Monday in the meeting too, that I think would be important for us, I'd like to see us look out a couple of years and start financially planning those couple of years. We're doing it with all our partners right now. We did it with the chamber, we're doing it with the DDA, we're doing it with others, where we're starting to look out what's it going to look like in the next few years, so it's sustainable and we don't have difficult discussions every year. We're already prepared to know what's coming. And I think that will help us and help us prepare on the finance side, if we don't just look at 1 year window every year. And here it's even more challenging, because all of a sudden we got to come up with $1.6 million for a truck, or we had to come up with a bunch of money for radios, or we had to come, or if we would have planned and seen it coming, we could have done a little bit each year to kind of get us there. So again, appreciate all the comments, thoughts. I'll have more as we go through, but those are just the overview. I like the direction we're taking this, and so again, thank you for that.
Jim, I got a question on the accreditation. I want to make sure I understood what you said there. Are you saying that maybe we don't prioritize that as we have in the past? I'm not saying it's wrong. I just want to make sure I understood that. And then I'd like to get the staff's input on that too.
It's important, right? And you go through all your policies, you're refreshing me to all the other wonderful things. And I served on an accreditation board in Arizona, right? That's the original founding member. And so when you go through the accreditation, it's a lot of work for quite a few staff. And so since we already have some rough challenges with training and stuff, is that the top priority? It's great to have it. It shows that we're doing all that we do, but we probably do all we do anyhow, right? And so I just don't want to kind of jump in front of taking care of paying for employees and making sure that we're not putting too much burden on them, and then we slip because it has that aha moment that you're tired or what have you. And to me, I would love to have it, but it's not going to be that top, knowing all the other needs we have. That's why I would say I'd push it down.
No, it's a fresh perspective. I was here when we went to accreditation. The reason at that time we wanted to bring a a set of new eyes in and say, are we doing everything right? So I guess it'd be interesting hearing from the chief's perspective, both of you. What's your thoughts on accreditation? Is it money well spent?
I think for me, I think it's something I need to think about because I haven't thought about dropping accreditation. So I think let us circle back and chat about it and see what we.
And ballpark, could you give us a figure on what that costs to stay accredited?
Well, it's the time and energy from the staff. I'm technically filling the role because Dan Ingard's going to be leaving. Was listed as our accreditation manager. I'll be filling that role. I went through a course last year on it. It gives you a lot of great principles to become an awesome organization. It helps you identify things that you maybe didn't think of. There's a new self-assessment manual that has come out that we would have to follow, and there's probably 60 some new items that we haven't even seen yet. I wasn't part of the initial startup, and I want to say that was around 2015 or so, but we've gone through 2 accreditation cycles. So this would be our 3rd one coming up. I feel like it has given us a lot of things that we haven't used in this organization or thought about before. So I think there are some strengths to it, but it's a heavy lift. You have to have people in place to do it. You really need one person to manage it, but then even the one person still needs all the other people helping to provide the information. I mean, it's hard for me to say one way or the other, because I feel a little low. I guess workload has its pros and cons.
And I think some of the things that you have to do for accreditation, we have to do anyway. Strategic plan, standards of cover. We're constantly doing policy reviews all the time anyway to make sure our policies stay up to date. All of our program managers do annual program appraisals so we can see where their program's at, where they need to go, and it helps us drive budget decisions within each of the programs like Tech Rescue or whatever. So there's some of that stuff that we have to do whether we're accredited or not. So I think if we can circle back, we could probably give you a better answer if we talk through that a little bit and come back to you.
When we went through our last accreditation process, remember, we didn't pass. We had to go back to following year. So I imagine we put a lot of time and money into that. Did anything good become of putting that off a year? I mean, did they bring up something that we were missing? Did it help?
Well, the one piece that we didn't pass on was our methodology for our responses and how we categorized risk for those. Was that a high risk, medium risk, or low risk? So it was a good process for us because we actually cleaned up a bunch of responses, and that was basically in 23, and then we felt the impact in 24 with those changes. So it was significant to the point where the best example I can provide is we used to send like 5 companies to a fire alarm, and we realized that we don't need to. We only send 1 now because the concern or whatever was that was there before, the crews would be sitting in the vehicle and not being utilized. So it was a waste of time. We're like, oh, so we learned a lot of things similar to that, and we changed a ton of responses from it. So that was the biggest thing that we got out of it. And then there was just different areas, component areas that we learned. Hey, we actually need more staff and training because of X, Y, and Z that we're already doing. I'm like, oh, like helps you identify and speak, particularly to boards, about what needs are. So that's what I see in the value of it, is giving a more educated approach and conversation for you all that are making the decisions for us.
Questions?
I do have, I don't have as many as Jim, but I have a few. Let's see, this is Cap Insurance here? I'll take it. Question, how much time do you put into the IT part of your job? And I know it's not, there's other people besides you, but what's the cumulative effect of that on you?
It's hard to put a number on it.
Yeah.
Every day I come to work, I'm 1 phone call away from my whole day going down the hill.
Gotcha.
When a computer goes down, it's not like we're missing a hammer.
Sure.
I've gotta stop everything and address that. I'm doing at least, just myself, probably, 8 hours a day,
Really,
at least.
just yourself, and if you were to multiply that out, part-time other people helping you out.
Yeah.
A wild ad, just a wild guess, I'm not. gonna-
We're in February and I'm already pushing 15 hours off duty. Not because I'm trying to manage it where I'm not doing it off duty, but then I take away from my crews when I'm on duty.
And if you look at the issues that pop up, is this something that if you had, hypothetically, if you had a contractor, maybe they're on site, maybe they're part-time, maybe they're off-site, that they can dial in and take care of some of the stuff? Is there utility in that, or do you need more than that?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to be wise here,
No.
but we can't have somebody from the Geek Squad as a
Right.
backup. Somebody that doesn't understand how it affects the people on the street is not what we need.
Okay.
I have great people that I can count on, Clay up in dispatch. It's taken some work over getting there. City's got some IT folks that I can count on. But we also have to understand that we work full, 7 days a week, they don't. And so a lot of times during the weekends, we're handcuffed until they come in on Monday. We need that ability to have IT folks 24/7. Not only me, because a lot of times I get called on the weekends. I try to do what I can. I'm not a tech guy.
So does that include I'm sorry, I have so many questions, but this is a big issue we figured out, right? So on the CAD side, that's a very specific skill, aside from everything else we're doing. Is there a skill, do you think there's somebody out there, or maybe several people, whatever, that have that skill set combined with your common sense knowledge that you've gained over the years of doing what you're doing? Is that something that's trainable, or is that just something you do through osmosis every day when we do?
Well, it's trainable because
Okay.
I came from special operations and was handed IT. I knew nothing about IT. So it is trainable. However, there are those guys that are specialized in CAD that come to our CAD meeting and listen to them talk.
Please,
Because it's way over my head.
I'd love to.
And it's one of those things that unless you live in that world on a daily basis, it's hard to follow along with exactly what they're doing.
Perfect, thanks, I appreciate it. Let me know. Sure. I don't want to understand it either, but.
Yeah.
I think it's hard too for Dave. He's there for 48 hours, then he goes home for 4 days. And the city IT works Monday through Friday. And so even the connection to the people that can help him isn't always there just because of shift work. God, it makes it difficult.
Yeah, and if I could, another question, Jim. One more, I promise.
Okay.
I'm not gonna be a city manager.
Director Sampson after you.
Okay. So on the OEM stuff, is that, if we were to change that, if you were to change that and structure that differently so that, you know, Rob, whomever's function in that is, comes back and becomes a BC, how is that agreement formulated? Is that something between the city, the county, yourself? How's it funded? How would that work? You have any idea?
Yeah, I don't have any idea yet. We haven't
Okay.
even looked into it. I'm sure that I believe, but don't hold me to this, that it's in the IGA that forms the authority that we take care of the OEM, but I don't hold me to that, but I believe that's where it's at.
Okay, it's a big question. That's where it's at.
That's where it's at. Okay.
That's where it's at. Thank you, appreciate it.
Director Sampson.
Thank you. Okay, luckily I went last-ish, so a lot of my
You're
questions
not on
were
last.
answered. Okay, yeah, first and last. But a lot of new questions have surfaced. So when it's appropriate, I think the trifecta, I would like us to sit down and you could bring me up to speed, all the Andreas, on kind of just like the data that you had that, you know, indicates the base pay and all the additional benefits. Compare the comparisons. I'd like to see that. Usually when like council does it, we get that information, but it's usually an executive session. So of course it's a little different doing it this way. But I'd just like to see, just so we can have an idea, how far off the mark are we? I would really appreciate that information. And then also just, and maybe this is really naive of me to say this, but like, how did we get to the point that our shift captains and our station captains are all doing all this work, and are they getting additional pay, and is that part of their base pay? And when did we realize we needed this work done, and how come we haven't asked anyone else to do it? And you know what I mean? Like, why are we just piling on? And then is that included in the base pay number, or is that separate? Like a lot of whys. So I don't know if we want to sit down and talk about that in a separate meeting, but maybe you can address a few of those questions, like how?
Yeah, I can take one of them.
Okay.
As the organization has grown, hasn't been that long ago that we had volunteer firefighters.
Right.
And we made the transition to part-time firefighters and some full-time firefighters, and then getting us to 3 people across the board on every rig, and then opening the rescue company when we did the new Station 2 in 2014, and then Station 7 and adding people in Station 10. And the focus, and it's like this in the fire service everywhere, the focus is on operations to get our staffing up where we need to be. All the extra, it's not extra, it's the support stuff that holds the organization together oftentimes is neglected as we grow and continue, because we have a limited funding, and we put that towards what makes the most difference out on the street to the customers. So a lot of times that kind of support stuff gets neglected for a long time. When we did the station captain concept, so each station has one captain, and every one of the stations for a long time have always had a specialty. The water rescue trucks in one station and hazmats in the station.
Yeah.
And so it was natural that they take those projects on. When we first started that, we had captains that were managing all of our tools and equipment, bunker gear, our uniforms. They were managing all of that, and we've been able to add the logistics piece into it and be able to pull that stuff back. And so this is just the next natural step in this is our captains that are in those stations should be managing tech rescue, should be managing hazmat, the response type stuff that goes on out there, because that's their knowledge. That's what they do. But IT and maybe even some of the EMS training and some of that stuff, that's stuff that doesn't have anything to do with them providing necessarily direct service to the community.
Right.
So I think we're just at that next step where we've pulled those initial things off, that now we need to look at IT's probably the biggest one, but a couple of those others.
So the IT's kind of overseeing the IT program started a few years ago, or just like last year?
No.
May 19.
Yes.
I mean, it's always been internal.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we specifically assigned that as a program to one of the captains, and when we went to the captain concept, I'm trying to remember the year. That's when it was formally assigned to them.
Gotcha. And then it's just grown.
Yeah.
As tech has grown.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
department has grown in size, so that made it more complex, and I think the other piece that makes it complex is our call volume. That has definitely gone up.
Right.
But because of our process in 2023 and the changes that we made in 24, we took off calls and we realized we don't need to go to, but we're still feeling the impact.
Yeah, okay.
And we've always had, luckily, and this is the way it is across the board in the fire service, we've always had talented people that Dave didn't know anything about it when he went into it, but that's what we do. We figure it out and we pick it up. The guy sitting next to me managed radios and a lot of the technology stuff for many years. It's just a talent that he has, but at a certain point, the organization outgrows that.
Right. I have additional questions.
Sure.
Oh, now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So you also mentioned on the same kind of slide in the same vein, the overtime for training. So you'd mentioned since 2023, we've changed how we fund training, that we don't pay for a day off specifically for training. We don't pay during training. And then you also mentioned something, and these might be totally unrelated, so I apologize in advance for not knowing this. That's why I'm asking. Red cards, documentation for the cards. There is a station a shift captain or station captain that handles the documentation for the cards. And then you have the training that's separate. Are those similar? So, I'll give you a little bit of my background. So currently I'm a healthcare worker and I'm required to maintain my CPR and AED and all that, right? And I pay for that myself and it's on my own time. And I also have to file all of my cards with Dora and everything, all my certifications online, right? So that's totally separate from my job. It's how I can do my job. What I'm curious is how much of this is like that? And maybe at one point when we were flush and oh, sorry, I gotta get my daughter from the bus. When we were flush and we had a little bit more money pre-COVID and we were like, we can afford to pay for it because it would be nice. I mean, it's a requirement of your job. But now that we are like, okay, maybe finances are a lot tighter, is that, I mean, it's presented as though like, gosh, we're really letting our folks down because they have to do these things. But is there maybe in industry like there is in healthcare where a lot of times they have to cover that themselves? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so the red card, there's kind of two different pieces there, but
Okay.
related. So the red card piece, we have to do, that has to be someone internal with the department.
So they can't file for themselves,
Yeah.
like on Dora
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah,
Okay.
but because of the certification pieces, almost all of our certifications require some continuing education to
Right.
recertify. The EMT, which was kind of related to the medical piece of it, they still have to do the filing, but we do provide all of the trainings. And
Okay.
that's, we want to make sure that they're getting a certain training diet.
Okay.
We've been doing that ever since I've been in this organization, but we do that for all requirements. So like even the other certifications, like the firefighter side of the house certifications, they have to touch all the job performance requirements for whatever certifications that they keep.
Right.
But we'll do all of the filing
Okay.
for it, but there's not a DOLA side of that where they could do it on their own. It has to be internal.
Gotcha.
The only one that they do on their own is like their driver's license and their EMT.
Okay. Can I ask one more
Sure.
question? That's it. And then I'm done with, I won't ask another question. That's it. I'll go take my turn. We have this training facility. And every department district requires continuing education, continuing training. How much of this are we pooling in our beautiful facility, if that's possible, with other departments? And, you know, because I'm sure we all have similar standards, because everybody works together, right? When we have big crises. So, how much of that is something that we are pooling? And do we have a specified training person, or is that one for like, do we have like an IGA for a training person, or how is that working?
Yeah.
Is that an area that is enough expense that we could look at possibly partnering in some way to reduce cost, is what I'm wondering, or is that sort of like small things?
Yeah, in our training division right now, we have a battalion chief and we have 2 lieutenants. One of the lieutenants is dedicated to Loveland fire training, and the other one kind of does, it's kind of split. They're dedicated to when we need a cadre member for the regional academy, they fill that role, and the rest of the time they do Loveland fire training.
Okay.
And then we have an administrative person taken. I think she was sitting here. She works for Loveland Fire, but we get part of her, I think it's 75% of her funding for her position comes from the FRFC Academy, so the regional academy, because she does administrative work for that academy as well as our training records and stuff in-house. The regional academy is based out of our training center. Doesn't mean they're here every day. They move around to the burn buildings of the various other departments. There's 11 departments, I believe, in the consortium right now. And so they may be at our building utilizing a prop we have today. And then next day, tomorrow, they're in Lafayette at their training facility using a different prop. Or if it's a big academy, they may be split on the same day between two academies. And so there's a cost to the academy for facility use, for apparatus use, for instructor use, that all comes back to the organization. So it's a least resource that they call it. So the departments are recouping money back by providing resources to that academy. And some of that is reducing our cost per recruit. We put through that as well. Specifically to our training facility outside of the the Consortium Academy. We have an IGA with Berthoud Fire. They pay us annually to utilize the training center. So they're there probably 2 to 3 times a week. There's a Berthoud company down there training. It's open to any of the others. The last 2 days, Longmont Fire's rented it for engineer testing, and they've been down there for 2 days with a couple of their engines and doing engineer testing. The different law enforcement agencies use it. They use the buildings for that. We have a fee schedule for all of that we charge it, whether it's the classroom, it's the driving track, it's the burn building, and they're actually burning is a higher cost than if they're just using a portion of the building and not burning in it. The tower, everything has a fee that's associated with that, and the training works through that, and we invoice those departments to recoup that money. So.
Okay, but I think the concept that you're talking about, that's really what the FRFC does, is 11 agencies come together so that there's not 11 academies happening.
Right, we're not, yeah, everybody, even, okay.
One of the things, we used to do our own academies. And so we would hire 4 people and then internally run our own academy to do that. The problem with that is, besides the training staff, we had to pull companies that are on duty down there for the larger trainings, the burns and stuff to have enough people to do that. We have instructors that are SMEs at different stations that would need to come in and teach ladders or whatever the subject is. And it holds the organization back from ever getting to an advanced level of training because we're always just training recruit firefighters. And so it never lets the organization move forward because that takes so much resources to put people through academies twice a year that the regional academy works so much better because it frees up our people from having to do that. We still have involvement. We still have, instructors that may be an SME on firefighter safety and survival that goes and teaches for 2 days. Or we have our training staff member that's part of that cadre that sticks with that academy through the whole 14 weeks. But it's shared amongst all of those agencies.
Beautiful, okay, thank you, I have more minutes time.
Anybody else have questions?
Yeah, I have a few. And I want to, first off, Chief, I really appreciate the presentation. I think it was really good there. I'm in agreement with Director Thompson on this one here. One, my top priority would be pay and benefits itself. If we don't have our people, it doesn't matter how much equipment we have and getting there. And I like the idea of looking at maybe a phased approach of how to bring them back up to start in that manner. I think especially in this day and age of budgets, but figuring out where it's at. The other aspect is capital, because if we have our people, we don't have the capital equipment to be able to get out to do what we need to do. Doesn't do us like good doing that either. I am a fan of basically finding out how to, and I put it in an IT term, how to enterprise some of the stuff you all are doing. For example, the young captain over here, and I do say over here, it's one of the problems that I had working with Bureau of Reclamation. We had dams that ran 24/7, and we had folks out there that needed IT support. Well, how do you get them? Well, and Jim, this is for you. One of the ideas is if it is feasible to use city IT, and it seems like you've got faith in them. In using that as being able to get you all one throat to choke. That's kind of what I call it. You got that one throat to choke off duty so that you can make that call, that's the person to get to, and try to look at something in that manner where you can get that and also relieve them to do the job they're paid to do and be there for their staff when they're there. So I definitely like those areas. OEM, it surprises me. I've always thought cities ran OEM. I didn't know fire departments did. So you guys surprised me on that one. I don't have an issue looking at it in and of itself, but I think to me, I think one of the key things, I don't want LFRA to be the training fire department for the other departments. I want the other departments want to come, their people want to come here. And the only way we can do that is try and find some comparable pay out there to get them to where they're here. Where our folks are going to be leaving, not because they don't want to be here, providing the support that they do to Loveland, because a lot of them live here, want to support the city and the rural and be able to do it that way. But they also have families and everybody else have to take care of to be able to support that. So looking in that manner and just kind of running there to me are some of the most important things to do. And I have one more thing, but I lost it, so I'll let Andrea talk all she wants. That one.
Whatever.
Director Sampson.
Did Director Thompson have something else?
I spoke
Yes.
too long to begin with, but I do have more, but I'm not gonna go there today.
You know, okay. So I agree on pay, of course. My other question was, and, Jim touched on this. There was a 2.5% increase, right? And it was supposed to be a pay increase this last year.
No, the pay increase was different because it was put up on an exception report that it wasn't included in the 2.5 that we originally gave. So the other increases and other things in the budget, I don't know what they were. Because that wasn't provided, but what was provided was just an exception report, the top line in the exception report, if my memory serves me right. Was salary increases, which was, what did we do?
4%.
Yeah, 4% or 4.5%, whatever it was last year. But that was the first one that we didn't have funds for because we took the 2.5% increase and I don't know what it was used for. And that's where I was lost in that discussion, and it's why wasn't that included? Because if it's 70% of our cost and it's 2.5, you get to about 3.25, 3.5, right? And you're still short a little bit on the number side. So we could have absorbed most of that. It would have been a smaller portion. So that's what happened last year. They still received raises, but it was never included in that first amount, that chunk of money we gave. And I never found out where that went yet. So, but I'll get into that later in that discussion.
So do you have a question about it? or-
Not
Well, no, I can
today, but when we get into the numbers, I'll probably
Okay.
want to have a.
Good. I think you missed some of the original presentation, because what happened was that the 2.5%, there were non-discretionary increases that had to be covered. They ate all of that 2.5%, so there was nothing left to even begin to talk
Well,
about raises and
and
things.
part of that though was some of that non-discretion, and back to the other comment. What are we doing today that we're doing different than we used to do that we may not be needed to do?
So there were just a few,
That
they were in the
part never
presentation.
transpired, so it was like, yeah, we ate it all up in this non-discretion, but. To me, non-discretion would have been having radios or something which wasn't included, so just a whole different discussion and philosophy, but I'm happy to go there at a different time and not eat that up today, so hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, well, because I mean, so there was none of the increases that we gave last year ended up being that the board approved.
Yeah, we gave it.
Yeah.
The rural bumped
Yeah,
250K to
Right.
make sure it was 4% full, not 2.5.
Okay, so that's what I had thought,
Right.
but then we are at the very bottom, so every other organization gave significantly more than we
Well,
did.
and we
this
were
way.
already at the bottom, towards the bottom in 2025.
Okay,
So we were at like 9%, the 9th percentile.
Okay,
So 91% of the organizations were above
are you
us.
comparing organizations of similar size?
Similar size, location, yeah.
Okay, it's scary to me that we had, I think what the board had considered at least some pay increases, and we're at the bottom. I mean, how much are we gonna? And it's not that I do absolutely want our firefighters to be paid. That's not the question. The question is, how do we get there and what's gonna need to be cut?
Well, I'll fill in the blank, because I've run into this a lot, and it could be different here, but what tends to happen is a lot of times, depending on how you set up your pay system, if you're not doing market adjustments, there's some that go crazy. 15 years ago, IT shot up like 20% one year, and now you're having to go out and so what you really need to do every year, you should be making a market adjustment every year. That's one pot. That's what we did in the city, rather than a 4.5% raise on, or even 5 in some cases for just performance.
Right.
We went to doing a market and then a much smaller performance, so we
Right.
could ensure that the market, we didn't fall behind. We set at 50% at the 50th percentile. We're not there in all positions. Some are slightly ahead, some are slightly behind. And then we do a deep dive on ones that we feel are off. Now, what I traditionally would do is every couple of years, I would do a deep dive for everyone. But once you get a system in place, you don't fall that much further behind.
Right.
There are some that maybe have recognized groups or otherwise that have provisions in our contract. We're always going to be number 2 in the market. Then you have to look at who you're using for your comparables, which I don't even know. We talked about it last year, so I appreciate that. Who we're using for comparables. So some organizations use different comparables, because there are some comparables that may be at a higher place in the market than where we're at. And so you got to be careful of who's in your comparable pool. Like us, we we include everyone around us plus a few others, but we don't maybe have the highest paying ones in our comparables or the lowest paying ones in our comparables. We try to find a happy spot. So all of that will influence those numbers. I think point being though, what I heard is that we probably just didn't. I don't know if it wasn't a priority or if there was other things, because we added things that came in that we traditionally hadn't done either. Looking back in the numbers and some of the finances I have now, we added some things that are new burdens on the organization. But we did away with the one-time money per se for the replacement, and then we had the ongoing operational on the set aside for the replacement, that deferral issue that we did. That would have been additional money too. So what was that used for? Then wasn't used for those salary increases that maybe it should have. It had to be used for something else. The question is, what was that used for? Or did we just fall that far behind over time? So there's a whole bunch of questions I still have, but I'm not gonna go there today.
I think one of the things we're doing here that's important is what the chief brought up front is we're setting our priorities. We missed this piece last year. And that's our number one priority, as we've all talked about, is taking care of the people we have. We want to attract and keep the very best people, make sure they're trained, make sure they're safe. We're gonna make that our priority, then back into everything else. Is that correct, Chief? That's the direction we're going with this.
But I think, Chair Swanty, if I could, I think that from what I gathered from just conversations with individual board members, from watching past board meetings and reading the minutes and everything that has, even just being on council for 6 years and, you know, working in relation to this board, it's always been our priority. That's always been the priority. The firefighters, the staff have always been the priority from what I've gathered, right? So what I can't wrap my head around is how the message now is, we're not paying you guys really, I mean, peanuts. We're the lowest on the pay scale. How did that happen? That's what I can't figure out, and that's what I would like to know.
Yeah, it's important to keep in mind that I would say most of our comparable departments have CBAs. So
could you acronym, sorry.
Collective bargaining agreements.
Okay,
So
okay,
they're,
unions.
yes, they're
Okay.
union. So a lot of them will have the 3-year, 2-year, PFA has a 1-year right now.
Right.
But they tend to, and then they don't do those until the very end of the year. So we're guessing because we need it done in August. So we're guessing what those are going to be. And then we have to play catch up every year. And there have been the CBA, it's significant increases.
Yes.
Like we're always surprised when we come, and it's raw data because we're on a step plan. So for our non-sworn, we have the ranges and we do exactly what you say for the non-sworn.
So we're not bottom of the barrel pay scale for non-sworn, correct? Just for sworn. And just per comparables that we're sort of guessing at a little bit, but it's within our region. And it probably is based on the previous years too, and kind of averages and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we talk with the departments and see what are you looking at?
Right.
But nothing, a lot of them don't have it set in stone until the end of the year.
Jim, and I may help on this, and we talked a little bit last year, and I'll probably talk more so I could have the answers to help with the discussion, but so if you have 10 steps, or let's say you have 7 steps, or you could have 5, or you could have, and then the steps, are they deeper or are they more shallow? And if you're, and that's just it. I mean, so you play with the steps. So what the steps do, you don't want to overlap into the next range either, because if you bump somebody up, how long do they bump before they get the next pay and the next level? Is it 30 days? Is it instantly? All those other discussions we can have. So let's say you're deeper range. Let's say you're 7. The low may be lower than everybody in the market because you're 7 and everybody else is 3 steps or 4 steps, and they're not as wide in that range. Their top end though in the 7 is probably greater than the others on the top end, but you're hoping the midpoint falls, that's why you normally use midpoints unless you all had consistency in the steps. So it's really complex as to what that looks like. And then that's the other question. Are we comparable to the marketplace on our number of steps, our depth of our ranges, and all the other good stuff? And I don't know, and we haven't talked about that many depths, but we'll go there this year, I think, only because we want to address it.
It will.
Yeah. Okay, so good. So thank you for that. And that's what I mean, because I know this board has had that priority. And when you say over the last 3 years, we basically bottomed out, you know, and Jim's being very, I think, tactful. And you will learn, and actually, as an Andrea, I don't know if you guys are maybe like this too, but tact is not my forte. I tend to just say it like it is. Yeah, and so maybe I can learn from you to be the Andrea that has tact as well. But in the last 3 years, what we've seen come online is capital, right? And this has been conversation within the community, across, within the board, within the last 3 years or greater. We now have a wellness center that we have additional capital for. We now have a training center that we have additional capital for, or I think we now have, I don't know if that's in the last 3 years, but, there's additional considerations that we're taking on as an organization. So we're bottoming out in pay, we have additional responsibilities. Like, my thing is stepping into this, how are we gonna find that balance? And like, how much of one is affecting the other? Do you know what I mean? That's what I would like to know. So I know you can't answer that question right now, and I'm not trying to put anything out there to put like questions in people's mind. I'm just telling you exactly where I'm at, so that hopefully at our next meeting, or whenever we discuss this again, if we have a private meeting or whatever, that we can kind of tackle some of these things, because I would like to have a really, really great grasp. Because the other thing that we are as board members, not just decision makers, we're also
Speaking of
ambassadors
boards,
about
just a reminder,
LFRA.
you have a 4 o'clock board meeting you have to make.
Well, they can wait.
Okay.
So we are not just board members here. We don't just help make decisions and direct this incredible organization. We also are ambassadors, right? But we have to have a full grasp of what's actually taking place before we can be really excellent ambassadors. And I think for the last 3 years, there has been information that has not been presented to us or to the board, or there have been misunderstandings or misgivings or whatever that have left us in a position where now we have to kind of work together to play a little bit of catch up. I don't know if that's fair. Here's one thing, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself, not the.
Are you talking about communications going to city council? I mean, we depend on.
No. I mean,
Yeah.
from staff to the board and from
Yeah.
chief to the board. I think there have been things that have not been clearly communicated to the board. And I think there's been decisions that have been made based on, information provided that maybe wasn't the full picture.
Yeah, I
If
mean,
that's
we
fair.
definitely depend on the staff to tell us what the priorities are and where the money's going, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think there's been maybe some disconnect, and I hope that we can have.
I think that's what we want as well, and why we're starting here with this, and I do just want to clarify one thing. We've had a training center since the 1980s here, so we added a new prop.
Right.
Thank you to the rural district, but we've had a training center for many years.
Yes,
at the training
yes,
center,
I'm
so
sorry,
it's
I
not
should
new.
have clarified that, yeah. I didn't know that, and also wellness, or the building there anyway, for other purposes, so, yes. So I think that's it for me.
I'm good.
Okay. Chief, what else can we answer? Or
I
where do we go from here to help?
I think we got what we need.
I was gonna say, did you get the idea of which way?
Yeah, I think we got what we need, and I know Andrea and Tim were capturing a lot of notes for us, so we'll go back, pull those together. I think we have a good idea of the priorities and match up fairly well with what we had here, and now we'll start putting some work into it and see where we go. One thing that Chief Smith mentioned, and I want to make sure that everyone's good with this. We'd like to do a presentation on the grants, probably at the March board meeting, if everyone's okay with that, so we can, Andrea and Chief Smith have the most knowledge on those, and so we can make sure everybody understands the different grants that.
Grants that we currently have and that could be available to us in the future.
It's really the ones that we're directly involved
Okay,
with.
great.
And the biggest thing, the only biggest thing I ask about that is if there's a grant, there's normally ask that goes along with it, make sure we understand exactly what it is.
Yes, please. Yeah. We're good, Chairman.
Chief, great. That'll take us to your briefing papers and correspondence.
There we go. First one's a nice email from a lady that came and did a ride along with Station 10. Just appreciated the cruise and spending some time with the crews and doing a ride along. Fire Marshal promotion. I think most everybody knows this. We've announced it that Chief Dan is retiring this month, and Sarah Winter is being promoted to take her place as the fire marshal. So we'll do a field promotion, which a field promotion for us is really hand her the new badge and new helmet and take a photo. And then when we do the next formal promotion ceremony, she'll get pinned by her family and that type of thing. So congratulations to Sarah on that. The funding concern for the CAD thing, I think I just wanted to mention that, but I already kind of did, so we can skip by that. Know that Chief Smith and Andrew and I, we're working through it with LPD, and a lot of it may just be our understanding of the IGA, because none of the three of us were involved in how that was written. But PD's assistant chief and dispatch manager were great when we met with them. Let's figure it out. So 4th of July, just wanted to bring the attention to that one. We have some overtime costs. You guys remember the total on that? Approximately $8,500 for staffing our stuff in the park. We were asked last year to turn that into the city, what that would be. I don't know if there was anything that came out of that, but just for the board's awareness, we do have that. Generally on those standbys, we bill whoever organizes the event. This one, it's a little tougher for us to do that. We did talk to Parks and he kind of laughed at us, so I don't know on that one.
We'll have to work on that.
Let's go work on Karen.
Yeah.
Well,
And this was Dan we met with.
And if I may,
Wow.
Yeah.
so on that, it hasn't elevated to me yet, but I knew because you mentioned it the other day on Monday, but I think part of that was we did away with the fireworks. We did other closures during the reduction. And then we brought it back to 150th, 250th. So we did put it in the budget, and that's what we're planning on doing. There's other things out there like that have impacts on all the different areas of operation, inclusive of all of you. But this year we did it for that reason. So I don't know that funding we used to do. I don't know if we paid in the past and I don't think so. And that's part of it. That's why Park said we're not paying again, just because we took a couple of years off in there. So again, that's part of it.
Yes,
We have it in the back. So then the big question comes up, what happened to the overtime money that was paid before, and was that absorbed also in the budget, which I assume it was, because it's part of the deferral and everything else. So I am not even gonna open that.
And prior fireworks shows, we didn't have a fee schedule in place for our standbys. And since then, now we have a formal fee schedule with the number of people at different events, and that drives our standbys. And that wasn't in place before. So it's not a good comparison to where we were before for that event or any other event, because we were doing standbys at different events prior to that and not charging, whether it was the Lions Club or whoever else. And now we have that fee schedule because we realize that that's probably not the right thing to do. And our brothers and sisters from the police department, we follow kind of what they do with some of that now.
Yeah, they nickel and dime us, man.
You'll get the heartburn from that too, just like you'll be.
Yeah. If I may, we did do that at the airport. And the air show was one of those big issues because the promoter traditionally hadn't been paying, and we were undercharging for those services, and we decided we were gonna start recouping 100% of those costs for the special events and other stuff, unless there was an economic value to it, and we would have those discussions separately. But we did that in the PDN, and that was a challenge because the airport promoter said, "Whoa, that's a big increase." Well, because we were finally starting to charge what the actual costs were.
Yeah.
And so we don't put that burden on the general taxpayers. We put the burden on the promoter of that is making money on their event. So it just made logical sense.
Yep. Next one is the airport. They're working on their runway expansion and discussions with the airport manager, airport operations. That's the next step towards air service, commercial air service coming in. That'll have an impact on us. That's just something we're watching. Chief Smith and I have a meeting later, I think next month, with them to kind of see where they're at. It's going to turn into regular meetings with them because those flights require our service, and we have one ARF engineer that's assigned to that right now. That position's on shift filling other needs because there is no commercial service out there right now. But if that comes back, and if it comes back to the level that they're talking, it's going to require more than one ARF person out there, and it may be 7 days a week kind of thing. And so that's gonna make our operations out there look different, and something that potentially then, we're gonna have to talk with the board about how do we do this.
Charge them.
is there a fee, you know, that charges to the airlines to help us recover some of those costs and stuff? So those are the things that Chief Smith and I are gonna start working with the airport management in preparation for that. It's hard, and all the firefighters in the room will know this, that it's always been, the airlines are coming, they're coming, and we get ramped up and then it doesn't happen, or they're here and gone. But I think that, you know, the airport manager really believes this is the key step that, you know, that it's gonna happen. So to what extent, we just have to remember those have effects on our operations and staffing and stuff out there. Buckskin Heights Fletcher Hill Town Hall. So that's one of the 3 areas that were included into the rural district. We have a town hall with them on March 4th. We've done the other 2 already, just after it happened, they're now part of the rural district, which means part of the LFRA. Just having a discussion with them about who we are, what we do, answering any questions, that type of thing. So the last one we have is March 4th. That'll be at Station 7 in the evening.
Do you know what time? 6 o'clock, thank you.
And then into my other report, that's a brand new fire engine, the one we ordered in 2023, that's in progress up at SVI in Fort Collins. That's not chrome, it's just not painted yet.
I think I leave that color, I like it.
Like to, when you see it on the road.
We've been working on live burn instructor training with our new burn building. That one's a lot more complicated than the other burn building, the residential props. So we've been working over the last month with all of our burn instructors, getting them really comfortable in that building before they start leading, you know, newer firefighters or their companies and stuff inside the building. So that's been going well. Yes.
Good question. The new burn building, will we have to have our personnel there and other people are using it just because of the complexity?
Yeah, anytime we're burning down there, we have somebody from LFRA there. The rest of the burn instructors, they can make up their own, but for this building right now, and we're not letting other agencies use this building for live fire other than us and Berthoud, because Berthoud's included in this training that we're doing. That'll be gradual, that we'll want to get them through other agencies through that. The FRFC instructors will be different because they'll go through, you know, instructor training, because we'll burn in there. But we've been directing Wellington, for instance, they used our training center a couple times this last year, and they want to do that again this next year as we direct them to the smaller burn building to start with, and then we'll kind of work our way up to the bigger burn building. So,
thanks, Chief.
From January, as a community education engagement photo, our crew out at the Colorado Eagles First Responder Night. And sorry, I skipped one.
So as our first due or records management system builds out, improves, they get their programs and reports built, I'm able to start getting some data. So here's January's calls that we went on and the new breakdown of how NERIS, or the National Emergency Response Information System, that's the federal system that we report to, is broken down, so you get to see that. And then the rest are calls. This was an incident, and I totally forgot the name of the business. Yeah, they have 90,000 pounds of magnesium on site that's in chip, and they inject that, they melt it and they inject it into molds, and they make thousands of different kinds of molds. Well, their machine caught fire, so this was a fairly substantial response. It involved Windsor, Berthoud, and PFA, obviously ourselves that were there, but it was a machine about the size of a pickup truck on fire inside of the building.
Magnesium.
With magnesium, and some magnesium did burn, and we used a lot of their special extinguishers to put it out, because if you spray water on magnesium, it just burns faster. So yeah, we had to take a different approach. And this one was a fire that we had on South Loveland. Started outside in something on the porch. I think I actually referred what started the fire, but it got to the attic. So they're not there. The house is not livable in for a while. do a lot of the repairs. Again, that was birthed at Loveland, that one. Sorry. This one was, handful of teenage underage drivers that, took a hard turn, and that mark on the side of the building is the car that hit the house. And it ended up in the backyard upside down. They, luckily nobody was transported. They had to hunt for one of the boys because he ran off and went home. But, yeah, enjoy driving. Fire down in Berthoud that we had just the other day, this past weekend. It's us, Longmont, Thompson Valley Sheriff's Office, double wide view there, so I don't know if we heard exactly what caused that fire, but pretty substantial, a lot of extra stuff in the house.
That was one that we ran into that has border conditions in it. It's really difficult to try and put out, difficult to try and search. So that was a very labor intensive fire.
Next one is a call that we had on Devil's Backbone that they actually accessed from the west side of Devil's Backbone with our UTV. She was in a position where she could actually sit up and not have to be on a backboard, so they got her to the ambulance and transported her from there. But those are usually calls that take quite a few people just to find out where they're located and access it. This is an update for our seasonal firefighters. They're actually doing interviews today and tomorrow, but we started with 52 applicants, invited 26 of them to do the Jamba interviews or video type interviews, and we screened through those and invited 14 interviews between today and tomorrow. And they will start on May 4th and ending on their hours and around November 5th.
And approximately how many positions?
4. And then we had our our portion of the FAA inspection yesterday. We actually kind of panicked because the crash truck wasn't passing the foam component. And we were like trying to make plans of borrowing someone's crash truck because the one that we have in reserve does not qualify because it doesn't have a special foam system on it to test. And we were in the works of borrowing South Metro's crash truck. Luckily, we didn't have to because our awesome mechanics that we've already talked about fixed the crash truck, passed the test, got our status back in like a 6-hour window. So we were panicking for a moment, but we're working now with the airport staff on having good plan Bs set up. We thought from the original, not the original. We thought from last year's inspector that would be okay. Like, here's our plan, and that inspector's like, no, that's not okay. So we went into panic mode and got it fixed. So we're okay for that.
Well, thank you. I heard about that one. So, and then you got on it really quick and it was fixed by the time they left, and so they were happy.
Yeah.
I was kind of disappointed because South Metro has ARF trucks that are the right color, they're red. And I thought we were gonna get one of those sitting in our bay for a few days at least. And any questions for us on that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief and Chief. That will take us to item number 7, and that's to consider a date for a rescheduled meeting with Fire Chief Sendelbach. As you probably know, he has an attorney and they contacted us and postponed last Monday's meeting. And so we need to reschedule that. I think Monday's out.
Monday's out for me.
Yeah.
I'm completely out of pocket.
So we're probably looking at Tuesday or Wednesday. Tuesday's probably preferable if everybody can make that work.
Yeah, Wednesday's rough for me.
Tuesday earlier in the day, either 9 or 10 in the morning, because we have a council meeting that evening. And
Yeah.
so we start getting real busy in the afternoon. There's a lot of calls, a lot of citizens and emails, and we get bogged down. So we do 9 or 10.
Is 9 o'clock good, or do you prefer 10?
Either.
Yeah.
Any preferences down at this end?
I have it 10 o'clock, but I'm gonna reach out and see if I can change it. 9 a.m. is
Tuesday.
just fine for me.
Okay, why don't we schedule it at 9 a.m. and we'll do a video meeting again to open up the meeting and then go into executive session. So I guess Emily, you're still out there, correct?
Yes, I'm still here, but legal counsel will not be present at that meeting. That meeting is only between the board and the chief. But if you let me know Tuesday at 9, I will communicate that back to Chief Sendelbach's attorney.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Well, Emily, can you maybe provide us just with an outline of what next steps might look like? So we have this meeting coming up and then what happens?
So at this meeting with the chief, this is the opportunity for the chief to address directly with the board the issues that were presented in the notice of intended termination, as well as any other matters that he may wish to bring up. That conversation happens just between the chief and the board members, like I said. The board should then take a couple days and think about it, right? Consider thoughtfully the additional information that was presented. And then I would suggest that we have a follow-up executive session between the board and legal counsel so that I can get your thoughts and we can talk about next steps from there. So in addition to having the meeting on Tuesday, you may want to start thinking about what time could the board schedule that meeting with legal. Under his employment contract, the board, it says is 5 days or as soon thereafter is as practicable to provide the chief with written findings. Clearly, we want to get closer to the 5 days than the as soon as reasonably practicable section. So you'd be looking at the following Monday or so. But I'd like to meet with the board sooner than that, probably Thursday or Friday. I know that some of our board members may be traveling. I don't know if a virtual appointment would be acceptable at that time.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Emily, I have one more question. Just for public, because I feel like the board probably has an understanding, but just so that we have clear messaging. Why do we need to do all these meetings in executive session? Why can't we have them in the public?
We've not talked as a board about whether we would hold these meetings in public. It would be very, very unusual to have a personnel matter conducted in a public space. The chief's employment agreement provides that it will be conducted in executive session. We've not received a request from the chief himself to change that. If we did receive that request from the chief himself, I would want to talk with the board about whether that would be appropriate. Certainly, we want to be as transparent as we can be, but we also want to protect the individuals who are involved, especially the chief. So that's not something I'm really prepared to address today in open session. If we receive that request from the chief, we will talk about that separately with the board and think through what the legal landscape of that might be.
No, I think you addressed it well. You answered my question. Thank you.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So let's look at a date of Thursday or Friday next week as well. Is there a day that works better for everybody?
Friday would have to be extremely late in the day. I'm actually traveling Wednesday. I will be out on Thursday and then be traveling back on Sunday. I'm traveling for a medical procedure, which will take me out all day Thursday, unfortunately, and maybe into Friday morning.
Okay, so Friday afternoon, and are you comfortable with pushing that?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the best I could do on those days. It's been scheduled for 6 months, so
okay.
No, we certainly don't want to interrupt that. And I know it's Friday and that's not everybody's preferred time to meet, but it looks like Michelle and I would be available, say, at 5 or 6 p.m.
Friday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I couldn't do anything before 5.
But you're okay at 5?
5:15.
5?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, and we'll start drinking till later.
All right, 5 o'clock. So we're gonna have 2 meetings scheduled next week.
Okay.
Yep. So I'll hold 5 o'clock on our calendars on the 6th.
5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. Okay, any other business or comments from the board? All right, hearing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all so very much.